I've been employed at Meridian Investments for about 10 years, and my name is Julia. Through many late hours and missed weekends, I worked my way up from entry-level analyst to investment manager. The last year has been very demanding. Our CEO referred to the 3 significant client acquisitions I oversaw as transformational for the business. The benefits that followed made the tension worthwhile, even if it almost broke me. I was looking over my accounts last Thursday when I came to a realization that made me pause in the middle of my morning coffee. I had saved up enough money from my normal wage and these recent bonuses to buy my parents a decent home, something I had wanted to accomplish for years. Mom and Dad have lived in the same dilapidated 2-bedroom on Cedar Street for over 30 years. The roof leaks every time it rains, the foundation is cracking, and the heating barely works in winter. They'd always refused my offers to help with repairs, saying it wasn't worth throwing good money after bad. But they also refused to move, citing financial constraints. I called my realtor friend, Deanne, immediately. "I need a house," I said without preamble when she answered. "Well, hello to you too, Julia," she laughed. "Tired of that downtown apartment already?" "Not for me, for my parents. Something small but solid, in a safe neighborhood, walking distance to groceries and medical facilities, and with a good-sized yard for Mom's gardening. Dad's arthritis is getting worse, so minimal stairs would be ideal." Within a week, Dion had found the perfect place, a single-story ranch-style home in Oakwood, a quiet suburb with excellent amenities, 3 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and best of all, a beautiful south-facing garden plot. At $385,000, it wasn't cheap, but my bonuses could cover it entirely. I toured it on a Tuesday and signed the papers on Wednesday. The closing process was expedited since I was paying cash, and within 3 weeks, I had the keys in hand. I hadn't told my parents anything. I wanted it to be a complete surprise. That Saturday, I drove to my parents' place for our regular family dinner. My sister, Anna, would be there with her husband, Mike, and their 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Anna is 2 years younger than me, and we've never been particularly close. Where I'm practical and focused, Anna is emotional and impulsive. She's bounced between jobs and apartments for years, never quite finding her footing. Mom greeted me at the door with her usual tight hug. "Julia, you're early for once. Come help me finish the potatoes." The house smelled of pot roast and cinnamon comfort scents from my childhood that always made me feel at home despite the peeling wallpaper and sagging ceiling. Dad was in his recliner, watching baseball and rubbing his knees absent-mindedly. "There's my big shot," he said with a wink. "How's the investment world treating you?" "Can't complain," I replied, kissing his cheek. "How's retirement?" "Boring as hell," he grinned. "Your mother keeps threatening to give me a honey-do list a mile long, but there's not much point fixing up this old dump." The doorbell rang, announcing Anna's arrival. Lily burst in first, launching herself at my legs. Mike nodded to me, already making his way to the kitchen to grab a beer. Anna gave me a quick, perfunctory hug. "Nice blouse," she said. "Expensive." "Just picked it up during a sale," I lied. There was no point telling her it was Burberry. Dinner was the usual affair: Mom's cooking, Dad's stories about neighborhood gossip, and Anna talking about her latest job prospect that was definitely going to work out this time. I sat quietly, the envelope with the house documents burning a hole in my purse. As Mom started clearing plates, I stood up. "I have something for you all," I said. "Well, for Mom and Dad specifically." Anna looked up sharply. "What is it?" I pulled out the envelope and handed it to my father. "Open it." He fumbled with the clasp, eventually extracting the papers. Mom leaned over his shoulder, her brow furrowed. "What is this?" Dad asked, confusion evident. "It's a house," I said simply. "Your house, if you want it. Fully paid for. No mortgage. It's in Oakwood, near the shopping center and the medical plaza. 3 bedrooms, all on 1 level. And Mom, there's a garden that gets perfect southern exposure." The silence was deafening. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, and Dad just stared at the papers. "I don't understand," Mom finally whispered. You bought us a house. Yes, I nodded. You deserve a nice place for your retirement, somewhere safe and comfortable that won't fall down around your ears. I pulled out my phone, showing them pictures of each room, ending with the garden. Mom started to cry, and Dad wasn't far behind. They both stood and enveloped me in a hug that nearly knocked me over. Over their shoulders, I could see Anna's face. Her smile seemed forced, her eyes hard. Mike was staring at his beer, clearly uncomfortable. Well, Julia, Anna finally said, that's really something. Congratulations, Mom and Dad. But the congratulations sounded hollow, and her smile never reached her eyes. The next day, I picked up my parents early in the morning to show them their new home. Dad was uncharacteristically quiet during the drive, but Mom couldn't stop talking. I still can't believe this is real, she said for the 10th time. Our own house. And in Oakwood, of all places. Janet from my book club lives there, and she's always bragging about how nice it is. When we pulled into the driveway, Mom gasped. The house wasn't large or fancy by any means, but compared to their old place, it was a palace. Red brick with white trim, a covered porch with enough space for 2 rocking chairs, and a neatly trimmed lawn. This is ours, Dad asked, his voice small. I nodded, handing him the keys. All yours. Want to do the honors? His hand trembled slightly as he unlocked the front door. The entryway opened into a bright living room with large windows that flooded the space with morning light. I'd had the real estate company leave some basic furniture so it wouldn't feel empty. Oh, Mom exclaimed, rushing forward. She ran her hand over the kitchen countertop, opened and closed cabinets, and tested the faucet. Look at all this counter space, and the dishwasher. Dad slowly made his way through each room, touching walls and door frames as if confirming they were real. When he reached the backyard, he stood for a long moment, staring at the garden plot. Mom joined us, already talking a mile a minute. I'll put cucumbers along that fence, and maybe some zucchini over there, and flowers, dahlias and marigolds to keep the bugs away from the vegetables. And right there, we could set up a little table and chairs for morning coffee. We spent the next hour going through every room, with Mom pointing out where each piece of their furniture would go and which walls she wanted to paint. Dad was mostly concerned with the water heater and furnace, checking them thoroughly and nodding with approval. This is quality stuff, he said. Not like the junk we've been dealing with. So, when can we move in? Mom asked eagerly. Whenever you want, I told her. The utilities are already turned on and in your names. I paid the first year of property taxes too. A week later, I took a rare day off work to help with moving day. I'd hired professional movers, of course, but I wanted to be there for support. Dad hated accepting help almost as much as he hated change, and I anticipated some grumbling. By late afternoon, we were at the new house, directing the movers where to place furniture. Mom seemed energized, darting from room to room with instructions and ideas. Dad, on the other hand, looked overwhelmed. You okay? I asked, sitting beside him on the porch steps. Just taking a breather, he replied. A lot of changes today. Good changes though, right? He nodded slowly. Good changes. Just a lot of them. He patted my hand. I'm proud of you, Julia. You've done well for yourself, better than I ever did. That night, as we settled in, I asked Mom, what are you going to do with the old house? Mom sighed, tucking in the hospital corners with practiced efficiency. Put it up for sale. I suppose not that anyone will want it, except for the land. That part of town has gone downhill. You might be surprised, I said, though I doubted it. Their old neighborhood had high crime rates and few amenities. Whatever you get for it will be a nice little nest egg. We'll need it, Mom said pragmatically. Property taxes and insurance will be higher here, even with you covering the first year. Over the next few months, I threw myself back into work. A new client had approached Meridian with a complex portfolio that needed restructuring, and I was determined to land the account. Between late meetings and weekend strategy sessions, I only managed to call my parents once a week and visit maybe twice a month. Each time I visited, the house looked more and more like a home. Mom had planted her garden as promised and was already harvesting the early vegetables. Dad had set up a workshop in the garage and was building birdhouses to sell at the local farmers market. They both seemed happier and healthier than I'd seen them in years. During one of our calls, Mom mentioned that Anna had been visiting frequently. She brings Lily over almost every weekend, Mom said. It's so nice having them close by. Lily loves helping in the garden. That's great, I said, ignoring the slight twinge of jealousy. I was glad Anna was spending time with our parents, but it stung a little that she could do so regularly while my career kept me too busy. Anna mentioned she might be looking for a new apartment soon, Mom continued. Her landlord is raising the rent again, and Mike's hours got cut at work. Is she hinting that she needs money? I asked, perhaps more sharply than intended. No, Mom said quickly. Just thinking out loud, I suppose. You know how Anna is. I did know. My sister had never been good with money or planning ahead. Every few months, she'd find herself in some financial crisis that required bailing out. Usually, that fell to me. Well, tell her to call me if she needs help with a security deposit or something, I said. You're a good sister, Mom replied warmly. I wasn't so sure about that, but I tried. 3 months flew by in a blur of meetings, presentations, and late nights at the office. I'd managed to land that big client I was working on, which meant another substantial bonus, but even less free time. I called my parents when I could, keeping our conversations brief but warm. They always sounded cheerful, settling into their new routines and neighborhood. Dad had joined a veterans group at the community center, and Mom was now part of the local garden club. One Tuesday evening, as I was about to head home after a 14-hour workday, my phone buzzed with a text from Anna. Having my birthday at Mom and Dad's next Saturday, 6:00 p.m. family and some friends. Be there. I frowned at the screen. Anna hadn't mentioned planning a party during our last awkward coffee meetup 2 weeks ago. It made sense, though Anna and Mike's 2-bedroom apartment was cramped even for just the 3 of them. The new house had a spacious living area and backyard, perfect for entertaining. I spent the next few days trying to figure out what to get Anna. Finally, I settled on a high-end coffee maker, the kind that grinds the beans fresh and makes everything from espresso to cold brew. Anna was obsessed with coffee but always complained about the cheap machine she had. This would be perfect. Saturday arrived, and I pulled up to my parents' house just after 6. The driveway and street were already lined with cars. I grabbed the gift-wrapped coffee maker from my passenger seat and headed inside without knocking. It still felt strange to do that at my parents' new house. The living room was full of people, mostly relatives I recognized from holidays and family gatherings, plus some friends of Anna's I vaguely remembered meeting over the years. A long table had been set up with an impressive spread of food, and music played from a portable speaker in the corner. I spotted Anna immediately. She was sitting at the head of the dining table, Mike beside her, holding court as she told some animated story to a group of admirers. She looked happy, confident, almost glowing. My parents, on the other hand, were off to the side, serving drinks and looking oddly nervous. Julia, Mom called when she saw me hurrying over. You made it. Can I get you something to drink? Mom's eyes darted around the room, never quite meeting mine. Your father grilled those kebabs you like. Better get some before they're gone. Something was definitely off with her, but before I could ask, she was rushing away to refill someone's glass. I set the gift with the others and made my way around the room, greeting relatives and accepting congratulations on the house purchase. Everyone seemed impressed with what I'd done for my parents, which made me uncomfortable. I hadn't bought the house for praise. Dinner was served buffet style, and I ended up sitting between Aunt Marge and Uncle Pete, making small talk about my job and their recent cruise to Alaska. Every so often, I glanced over at my parents, who seemed to be growing more anxious as the evening progressed. Dad kept checking his watch, and Mom was fidgeting with her napkin. Meanwhile, Anna looked completely at ease, laughing loudly and refilling wine glasses. After dessert, a beautiful cake from the expensive bakery across town, Anna announced it was time for gifts. She sat back at the head of the table while everyone gathered around to watch. She opened each present with exaggerated excitement, making sure to thank each giver effusively. Once all the gifts had been opened and admired, I expected the party to wind down. Instead, my father cleared his throat and stood up, wineglass in hand. Mom rose to stand beside him, her expression a mixture of nerves and determination. "We've got one more announcement to make," Dad said, his voice slightly shaky. "Barbara and I have been talking, and we decided to give this house to Anna and Mike." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. The room went eerily silent, then erupted in confused murmurs. Our relatives looked from my parents to me, clearly uncomfortable. Mom stepped forward. "We've signed the papers already. The house will be transferred to Anna's name next week." She finally looked at me, her expression almost pleading. "We think it's for the best." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Anna wasn't surprised at all. She jumped up and threw her arms around our parents, tearfully thanking them for the best gift ever. Mike stood beside her, grinning widely as he shook Dad's hand. The relatives in attendance shifted uncomfortably, shooting sympathetic glances my way. They all knew I'd bought the house for my parents just a few months ago. I stood up, legs unsteady beneath me. "Can I talk to you?" I said to my parents, trying to keep my voice level. Privately. The four of us, my parents, Anna, and I stepped into the kitchen while the party guests pretended not to notice. "What is going on?" I asked once the door was closed. "I bought this house for you, and we appreciate that," Mom said quickly. "But it's our house now, and we can do what we want with it." "You've had it for 3 months," I exclaimed. "I spent nearly $400,000 so you could have a safe, comfortable place to live in your retirement, not so you could give it away." "It's not like Anna's kicking us out," Dad said defensively. "We'll still live here until we figure out our next steps." "Next steps? What next steps? This was supposed to be your forever home." Anna stepped closer to me, her face a mask of sympathy that didn't reach her eyes. "Julia, you need to calm down. Mom and Dad made their decision. If you were really being generous, you'd be happy for me too. I have a family after all. Lily deserves a nice home to grow up in." The weight of the betrayal hit me all at once. "Fine," I said quietly. "You're right. It's your house, and you can do whatever you want with it." I turned and walked back into the living room, grabbing my purse from where I'd left it on the couch. I nodded stiffly to the remaining guests, some of whom tried to stop me with concerned questions, and headed for the door. Behind me, I could hear Anna saying something about me being dramatic, followed by forced laughter. The next morning, my phone started ringing before I'd even had my coffee. Cousin Rachel, Aunt Marge, Uncle Pete all calling to check on me and express their disbelief at what had happened. For the next few weeks, my parents called daily. I let each call go to voicemail. The messages started apologetic, then shifted to irritated, then finally moved to guilt-tripping. I listened to each one but couldn't bring myself to call back. What was there to say? I threw myself into work with renewed intensity. 60-hour weeks became 80-hour weeks. I took on clients no one else wanted. I volunteered for business trips that kept me out of town for days at a time, anything to avoid sitting in my empty apartment with my thoughts. 6 months passed this way. Fall turned to winter. I declined the usual invitation to Thanksgiving at my parents' house or Anna's house. I suppose I made plans to spend Christmas in Bali alone. My parents stopped calling as frequently, down to once a week, then once every 2 weeks. One Tuesday evening in December, I arrived home from work to find them standing outside my apartment building, suitcases at their feet. They looked older, tired, and out of place against the sleek modernist architecture. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "We need to talk to you," Mom said. "Please." I sighed and led them up to my apartment. They exchanged glances before Mom spoke. "We were hoping we could stay with you for a while, just until we find our own place." I stared at them, incredulous. Are you serious? We had to leave the house, Dad explained, not meeting my eyes. Anna and Mike wanted to renovate, and there wasn't room for all of us with construction going on. So you gave them your house, and now you have nowhere to live? I said flatly. We rented an apartment with the money from selling our old house. Mom said, but the lease is up next week, and we can't afford to renew. Your father took a part-time job at the hardware store, but it doesn't pay much. No, I said simply. What do you mean no? Dad demanded. I mean no. You can't stay here. I bought you a perfectly good house to live in, and you gave it away. That's not my problem to solve. Mom's face crumpled. How can you be so heartless? After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me lately? I asked. Besides throw my gift back in my face and accuse me of not being generous enough. You're being cruel, Mom said, tears filling her eyes. I'm being realistic, I countered. I already solved your housing problem once. It cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars and earned me nothing but criticism and ingratitude. I'm not doing it again. Then where are we supposed to go? Dad asked. How about Anna's house? The one that used to be yours? The one I bought for you? Surely your favorite daughter can make room for her beloved parents. They looked at each other uneasily. Anna says there's no space with the renovations, Mom murmured. Then that's between you and Anna. It's not my problem. I walked to the door and held it open. They stood there for a long moment, staring at me in disbelief before finally gathering their suitcases and walking out without another word. After they left, I called Anna. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice wary. Mom and Dad just showed up at my apartment expecting to move in with me. I said without preamble. They said you kicked them out because of renovations. She laughed dismissively. I wouldn't say kicked out. We're converting the guest room into a proper playroom for Lily. They could have stayed, but it would have been cramped. Besides, it's our house now. It was supposed to be their house, I reminded her. I bought it for them. I don't need another lecture from you. They gave the house to us. End of story. If you're so concerned about where they live, why don't you let them stay with you? She hung up before I could respond. I blocked her number immediately after. The next day, my cousin Rachel called to tell me that my parents had moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town. Dad had taken on a second part-time job as a night security guard, and Mom was looking for work as a cashier. They're telling everyone it's your fault, Rachel said, that you cruelly turned them away in their time of need. Let them say what they want, I replied. I know the truth. For what it's worth, most of the family is on your side, she added. We all saw what you did for them and how they treated you. That was 6 months ago. I haven't spoken to my parents or Anna since. From what I hear through the family grapevine, they're struggling financially but still won't admit they made a mistake. Anna and Mike are enjoying their spacious home I gift while continuing to badmouth me to anyone who will listen. I occasionally question whether I ought to have handled things differently. If I ought to have recognized my family's actual character sooner. If I ought to have been more demanding or less giving in my demands. But in the end, I know that I made the correct decision in purchasing the property in the first place and in standing my ground against additional manipulation. I had had enough of giving up myself for people who didn't even understand what I was giving up. At work, I've also started saying no more frequently. I've joined a hiking club and taken weekend painting workshops. Someone I recently started dating respects my time and limits. Instead of Bali, I'm spending Christmas in New Zealand. And I won't be alone myself. Mariette is my name. I'm 24 years old, received honors in college, and got a job that most of my peers would kill for. Before Dad became ill, everything was going smoothly. Dad was our family's pillar of support. He supported Mom, my 2 younger brothers, Ethan, 13, and Noah, 11, with his earnings as an executive director at a trading firm. Throughout her life, Mom never worked. Even though I occasionally questioned what she did with her time after we got to school, Mom was always proud to be a stay-at-home mother. Everything changed when Dad received a fatal cancer diagnosis. His condition rapidly worsened, and he spent the last 2 weeks in a coma before dying. When the doctor contacted me at work, I can still feel the emptiness in my chest. I apologize, Maria. Your dad wasn't present. It was a modest funeral. My brothers, who were too little to completely understand what was happening, stood silently next to Mom as she sobbed violently and gripped her black clothing. I firmly grasped their hands and assured them of my unwavering presence. After the service, Dad's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, asked to speak with Mom and me privately. According to your father's will, his assets are to be divided equally between you, Mrs. Carter, and you, Maria, he explained, sliding a document across the table. I nodded, expecting to hear about Dad's savings, investments, and the house. Dad was always cautious with money. He'd lecture us about saving for rainy days and making smart financial choices. So, what exactly are we looking at? I asked. Mr. Peterson adjusted his glasses. The family home is the primary asset. It's valued at approximately $350,000. And the savings? I asked. There was an uncomfortable pause. There don't appear to be any significant savings in your father's accounts, Mr. Peterson said, glancing at Mom, who kept her eyes down. That can't be right, I said. Dad always saved. He made good money. Mom finally looked up. Your father didn't have savings, Maria. The house is all he left. I wanted to argue that this wasn't the time or place. Instead, I told Mom that she and the boys could continue living in the house. I had my own apartment and a good job. They needed stability more than I needed my half of a house. In the weeks that followed, I visited often, bringing groceries and taking my brothers out to give Mom some space. But something felt off. I couldn't reconcile the father I knew practical, responsible, and financially secure with a man who died with almost nothing in his bank account. One evening, while Mom was in the kitchen making coffee, I brought it up again. Mom, I've been thinking about Dad's finances. It doesn't make sense. He earned a good salary for years. Mom's shoulders tensed. What are you implying? Nothing, I said quickly. I'm just confused. Dad was so careful with money. Medical bills, she said, turning to face me. Cancer treatment is expensive, even with insurance. It was a reasonable explanation, but something in her tone made me uneasy. Can I see the statements from his accounts, just to understand better? Mom hesitated, then went to her bedroom. She returned with a single sheet of paper and handed it to me. This is the final statement, she said. As you can see, there was only $372.04 left. I stared at the paper. It was genuine, showing Dad's account with just a few hundred remaining. But it didn't show any history, any withdrawals or transfers. Were there other accounts? I asked. No, Mom said firmly. This was it. Your father never had large amounts saved, Maria. I don't know why you thought otherwise. I dropped the subject, not wanting to upset her further, but the questions lingered. Mom and the boys settled into a routine without Dad. I visited when I could, but work kept me busy. Then, about 3 months after Dad's death, Mom called me. Maria, we're having money problems, she said, her voice strained. I need help with the bills. How much do you need? I asked. The property taxes are due, and there's the water bill, electricity. She trailed off. I hate to ask, but the boys need new shoes, and the pantry is getting empty. I can send you $700, I offered. It would be tight with my rent due, but family comes first. There was a pause. That's not enough. The boys need so much right now. They're growing boys, Maria. Mom, I'm trying to help, but I have my own expenses. Maybe it's time you considered getting a job. Her response was immediate and sharp. I've never worked, and I'm not starting now. I raised 3 children. That was my job. But Dad's not here to. I'm not discussing this further, she interrupted. Either you help your family properly, or you don't. I'm waiting for the money. Then she hung up. The abruptness of her response left me stunned. This wasn't like Mom. Or maybe it was, and I'd never noticed it before. The next day, I drove to their house without calling first. Mom wasn't home, but my brothers let me in. They looked thinner than I remembered. I'd opened the refrigerator, it was nearly empty. A half-gallon of milk, some condiments, and a single apple. Is the fridge always this empty? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. No nodded. Pretty much. Mom says food is expensive now. I closed the refrigerator door, and not forming in my stomach. Something was very wrong here. When Mom returned home and found me with the boys, her smile seemed forced. Was surprised, she said, putting down her purse. I noticed it was a new One Designer brand, if I wasn't mistaken. I wanted to check on you guys, I replied, gesturing toward the empty refrigerator. What's going on, Mom? The boys said this is normal. Ethan and Noah looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight from one foot to another. I felt bad involving them but needed answers. Boys, why don't you go play video games for a bit? Mom suggested, her tone suddenly sweet. Once they were gone, her expression changed. How dare you question me in front of my children? Your children are hungry, Mom. I'm concerned. We argued for nearly an hour. Eventually, I gave her another $700, watching as she tucked it into her new purse without much gratitude. I'll go grocery shopping right now, she said in a tone that suggested I'd offended her deeply. I'll come with you, I replied, not trusting her with the money. The shopping trip was tense, but at least the refrigerator and pantry were full when we finished. I hugged my brothers goodbye, promising to visit again soon. On the drive home, my phone rang. It was Aunt Linda, Dad's sister. Marina, how are you holding up? She asked. I'm okay. Just left Mom's place. How is she? She called me yesterday, sounding desperate for money. I nearly swerved off the road. She what? Said she couldn't pay the electric bill, that the boys needed new clothes. I sent her $500. It's not the first time either. My stomach dropped. When else has she asked you for money? Oh, every month since your father passed. I figured she was struggling being a widow with 2 boys and all. I thanked Aunt Linda and hung up, my mind racing. If Mom was asking Aunt Linda for money, who else was she calling? Over the next weeks, I discreetly contacted other family members. Uncle Robert had sent $600 last month. Cousin Jackie had helped with $300. Even Dad's elderly mother had sent what she could from her fixed income, all while Mom was carrying a purse I'd seen online for $1,200. I called Mom that evening, determined to confront her. I talked to Aunt Linda, I said, skipping pleasantries, and Uncle Robert, and Grandma. There was a pause. So you've been asking everyone for money while claiming you can't feed my brothers. What's going on? That's none of your business, she snapped. I'm doing what I have to do. It is my business when my brothers are eating ramen for dinner while you're carrying designer bags. I need that bag for job interviews, she lied smoothly. What job interviews? You told me you refused to work. I can't work, she changed tactics. My health won't allow it. This was the first I'd heard of any health issues. What health problems? Many things, Maria. Things I don't discuss with my daughter. I took a deep breath. Mom, this has to stop. You need to get a job. Asking everyone for handouts is shameful. Shameful? Her voice rose. What's shameful is how little you care about your family. I need more money this month, Maria said. Not $700. I need at least $2,000. What? No way. I've already given you $700. I replied. If you don't help, she interrupted, I might have to limit your access to your brothers for their emotional well-being. Of course, the threat hit me like a slap. You wouldn't try me, I said, sending her the usual $700 that evening. Furious and hurt, she responded with a text. Not enough. I warned you. True to her word, my brothers stopped answering my calls the following day. At first, I heard ringing, then nothing. Straight to voicemail. They weren't responding to texts either. After 3 days of silence, I drove to their school and waited outside. When Ethan and Noah emerged, they looked surprised to see me. Why aren't you guys answering my calls? I asked, hugging them both. Noah looked down. Mom took our phones. She gave us these old ones instead. He pulled out a flip phone from his pocket. She blocked your number, Ethan added quietly. She said we shouldn't talk to you anymore because you don't want to help us. She calls you greedy and selfish. Noah said, his eyes welling with tears. She says you have plenty of money, but don't care if we starve. I knelt down to their level. Listen to me. I love you both more than anything. Mom and I are having some disagreements about money, but it has nothing to do with you. I will always be here for you. I drove home with a plan forming in my mind. Mom was manipulating everyone, including my brothers. If I wanted to maintain my relationship with them, I needed to play her game for now. The next day, I sent Mom another $1,000. Within hours, my phone rang. Maria, darling. Mom's voice was syrupy sweet. Thank you for the money. I knew you'd come around. Of course, Mom. Family first, right? Absolutely. Why did you come for dinner this Friday? The boys miss you. I accepted, secretly disgusted by how quickly her attitude had changed. Friday arrived, and I brought dessert and expensive cake I knew Mom would appreciate. The first thing I did upon arriving was check the refrigerator. It was fully stocked. Dinner was surreal. Mom chatted incessantly about household chores, acting as if they were major accomplishments. I reorganized the linen closet today, she boasted, and yesterday I finally got around to polishing the silver. I nodded, thinking about how normal people don't brag about basic adulting. The boys seemed happier, though relaxed now that Mom wasn't trash-talking me. That alone made the extra money worth it. The next month, I sent $1,700 again, without being asked. Mom was delighted, calling to thank me profusely. Our relationship seemed to be improving on the surface, but I knew it was all an act on both our parts. A week later, Mom called with news. Maria, I need a favor, she began. I'm going on a little vacation to Hawaii, just a week to decompress, you know. Could you stay with the boys? Hawaii? The woman who couldn't afford groceries was going to Hawaii? Of course, I said, keeping my voice neutral. When? Next Tuesday. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. 2 weeks in Hawaii would cost thousands. Where was that money coming from? The $1,700 from me? $500 from Aunt Linda? Maybe more from others? It was adding up, but Hawaii still seemed excessive. No problem, I said. I'd love to spend time with the boys. This was my chance 2 whole weeks to figure out what was really going on. As I hung up, I knew one thing for certain. Mom was hiding something big, and I was going to find out exactly what it was. The day Mom left for her Hawaii vacation, I arrived at the house with my overnight bag and a mission. The boys were excited to have me stay, already planning movie marathons and video game tournaments. After getting the boys settled with dinner, I casually asked, "Do you guys know where Mom keeps important documents? I need to check something about Dad's old insurance policy." Ethan shrugged. Probably in her office. She spends a lot of time in there on her computer. I waited until they were engrossed in a movie before slipping into Mom's bedroom. It felt wrong snooping, but I needed answers. The bedroom itself was a shock. The closet was packed with new clothes, the tags still on some items. Designer shoes lined the bottom shelf. A jewelry box on the dresser held pieces I'd never seen before. Mom's office was connected to her bedroom by a small doorway. Her laptop sat on the desk closed, but not locked away. I took a deep breath and opened it. The password screen appeared. What would Mom use? She wasn't tech-savvy and always used the same passwords for everything. I tried her name. Bingo. I started with her email, finding receipts for recent purchases. A $300 dinner at an upscale restaurant last week. A $2,500 shopping spree at a boutique downtown. And most shocking of all, a confirmation for a luxury resort in the Maldives. Not Hawaii, totaling $8,700 for a 2-week stay. Next, I checked her bank statements. Mom had 2 accounts, one for bills, which showed minimal activity and matched what she told me about being broke, and another personal account that told a very different story. This second account showed monthly deposits of $3,000 to $5,000, far more than what I was giving her. The spending matched the luxury lifestyle evidenced by her closet. High-end restaurants, designer boutiques, spa treatments, and now this Maldives vacation. I scrolled back through the statements, trying to trace the source of this money. The regular deposits had started right after Dad died. Before that, there were occasional transfers from Dad's account, but nothing like these large monthly amounts. Something wasn't adding up. I opened the new tab and logged into Dad's email using his old password that he'd shared with me for emergencies. Most messages were now months old, but I filtered for bank communications. There it was, a notification of transfer from 3 days before Dad died. I checked the date again. Dad had been in a coma for 2 weeks before he died. He couldn't have made this transfer. I quickly cross-referenced the account number with Mom's statements. It matched her personal account, the one she was using to fund her luxury lifestyle. My hands were shaking as the truth dawned on me. Mom had transferred Dad's money, his entire savings, to her personal account while he was in a coma, unable to consent. Then she'd lied to me, to the lawyer, to everyone, claiming Dad had no savings. I needed professional help to navigate this. The next morning, after getting the boys off to school, I called Mr. Peterson, Dad's lawyer. I need to see the complete statement of my father's accounts from before he died, I said. As his heir, I have that right, correct? Yes, you do, he confirmed. May I ask why? I explained what I discovered, and he was silent for a long moment. If what you're saying is true, this changes everything, he finally said. Those funds should have been part of your father's estate and divided according to his will, half to you, half to your mother. That's what I thought, I said. Miss Carter, you could pursue legal action against your mother for this. The words hung in the air. Sue my own mother. The thought made me sick, but what she'd done was unconscionable. She'd stolen, not just from Dad, but from me all, while manipulating everyone with her poor me act and neglecting my brother's needs. Can we meet tomorrow? I asked. I'd like to discuss my options. The meeting with Mr. Peterson confirmed everything. The $400,000 transfer was clearly fraudulent. Mom had stolen the money, plain and simple, and I had enough evidence to take her to court. What would happen to my brothers if I did that? I asked. If your mother were found guilty of fraud, she could face jail time, he explained. In that case, the boys would need a guardian. Could that be me? Given your relationship to them and your stable situation, yes. You would be a logical choice for custody. I spent the next few days thinking about what to do, watching my brothers, who had no idea their mother was a thief. They missed her, talked about her coming home with souvenirs from Hawaii. They were innocent in all this. My decision crystallized. The night before Mom was due to return, I would confront her. But I would also offer her a way out, one that protected my brothers and recovered what was rightfully mine, without destroying our family completely. I put the boys on the bus the next morning, then waited in the living room for Mom's arrival. Around noon, I heard the key in the lock. Mom walked in, tanned and relaxed, pulling a designer suitcase behind her. Her smile vanished when she saw me sitting there. Maria, where are the boys? At school, I replied calmly. We need to talk, Mom, about Dad's $400,000. The color drained from her face. She tried to respond, but no words came out. Then she did something I didn't expect. She burst into tears. But these weren't her usual manipulative sobs. These seemed genuine, the tears of someone who knew they'd been caught. How did you find out? She finally managed to ask. I placed the folder of evidence on the coffee table between us. It doesn't matter how. What matters is that you stole that money while Dad was dying. You took what should have been half mine and lied to everyone about it. She collapsed onto the couch. You don't understand. I was scared, Maria. I've never worked. I didn't know how I'd survive with the boys, so you committed fraud, emptied Dad's account while he was in a coma. I did what I had to do, she shouted, then caught herself. What are you going to do? I looked at her. This woman who had raised me, but who I no longer recognized, and delivered my ultimatum. I'm going to give you a choice, Mom, and you'd better think carefully before you answer. Mom stared at me, mascara running down her cheeks. What choice? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Option 1. I take this evidence to the police. You'll be charged with fraud and theft. You'll likely go to jail, and I'll file for custody of Ethan and Noah. She gasped. You wouldn't. They'd be orphans. No, they wouldn't. They'd have me, I corrected her. Option 2. You give me my rightful half of Dad's money, $200,000. I'll set up trust funds for the boys' college education with my portion. You'll get a job, a real one, and start acting like a responsible parent. And you'll give me access to your account so I can monitor your spending and make sure the boys are being taken care of properly. Mom's face contorted with anger. How dare you try to troll me? I'm their mother. A mother who lets her children go hungry while she vacations in the Maldives, I shot back. A mother who steals from her dying husband and lies to everyone. She fell silent, the truth of my words sinking in. Those are your options, Mom. Jail and lose the boys, or cooperate and keep your family. Your choice. You can't be serious. The boys need me. The boys need food in the refrigerator. They need stability. They need a mother who doesn't use them as pawns to extort money from relatives. Mom covered her face with her hands. They'll hate me if they find out. I'm not planning to tell them, at least not until they're adults. Then they can make their own judgments. This isn't about punishing you, Mom. It's about making things right. She looked up, her eyes searching mine for any flexibility. She found none. Fine, she conceded. I'll do it. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I'd opened a new account for the transferred funds and immediately set up 2 college trust funds for my brothers. Mom surprisingly found a job at a local real estate office within 2 weeks. It turned out she had skills she'd never used during her marriage to Dad. I visited every weekend, checking the refrigerator always stocked now and spending time with my brothers, who were thrilled that Mom and I seemed to be getting along better. They had no idea about our arrangement, and I planned to keep it that way. One evening, about 2 months after our confrontation, Mom and I sat on the back porch while the boys played video games inside. I had my first showing today, she said. The client seemed interested. That's good, I replied, still maintaining some emotional distance. Maria? She hesitated. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I am sorry. I was terrified after your father died. I didn't know how to take care of myself, let alone the boys. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't, she agreed, surprising me. But I want you to know that I am trying to change. This job, it feels good to earn my own money. I should have done it years ago. I nodded, not quite ready to forgive, but acknowledging her effort. Just keep doing right by Ethan and Noah. That's what matters now. As the months passed, our new normal took shape. Mom continued working, even earning a promotion. I checked her accounts less frequently as she proved herself more responsible. The boys thrived with the stability, unaware of the drama behind the scenes. I still haven't fully forgiven Mom. I'm not sure I ever will. The betrayal runs too deep, the lies too calculated. But I've made peace with our arrangement for my brother's sake. Sometimes, when I watch Mom interact with the boys now helping with homework, cheering at soccer games, being present in ways she wasn't before, I catch glimpses of the mother I thought I had growing up. Maybe she's finally becoming that person, or maybe she's just a good actor. Time will tell. As for the future, my plan remains. When the boys are grown and independent, I'll sell Dad's house, split the proceeds with Mom as per the will, and let her live her life however she chooses. I'll buy a place large enough for my brothers to always have a home to return to when they need it. And one day, when they're old enough to understand, I'll tell them everything, not to turn them against Mom, but because they deserve the truth. They can decide for themselves whether to forgive her. I discovered a picture of Dad in my former bedroom last week. At my college graduation, He's grinning and holding me by the arm. He exuded pride and was confident that he had set us all up for success. He did, in a sense. Not in the manner he had in mind. His passing made Mom more self-reliant, exposed her true nature, and taught me to always stand up for what's right, even if it hurts. And my brothers will be able to create their own destinies with the money he accumulated, half of which is currently awaiting their schooling. I occasionally go to Dad's grave to provide new flowers and tell him about the boys' most recent accomplishments. I want to believe that he would be pleased with my handling of the situation and that I was able to respect his desires while keeping his boys safe. This morning, I received a text from Mom asking whether I would be joining her for dinner this weekend. Of course I'm going, not for her, but for Noah and Ethan, and perhaps even for me, because they are still my family in spite of everything, imperfect and broken, yet mine.